Well, I guess the Nisei pretty much knew that they were going to be incarcerated in these camps. And my father told me once that he didn't do anything wrong, and neither did any of us, and he was not going to spend the duration of the war in a camp.
And then came this news that you could leave on a voluntary basis if you had a place to go to, if you would not be a burden to the government, and if you could do all this within 72 hours.
We all migrated like a caravan, just like grapes of wrath going east.
As I recall, we went directly from Los Angeles to a little, not even a town, called Black Rock, Utah.
People that went to camp, they went to the mess hall to be fed, but we had to work. Otherwise, we do not eat. And then they would only pay us 25 cents an hour.
I think I owe it to my parents, my uncles, to tell about this experience because they took it with them to their graves. I know they did.
Surprisingly, very few people know about this exodus of this group.
Okay, well, I'll try to tell that story.
No, really, yeah.
When I was 1 year old, the United States government forcibly removed my family from our home in San Francisco. They sent us, along with 120,000 other Japanese Americans, to concentration camps where we lived for the next 3 years. My earliest memories are from life in the camps during the Second World War. Living through the trauma of displacement and incarceration as a young child has informed my work as a scholar of race, gender, and citizenship. It is only recently that I have learned about a different chapter of the Japanese American experience that until now has remained untold. That of a relatively small population of Japanese Americans who took their fate into their own hands and fled the West Coast before the government could forcibly remove and incarcerate them. Resettling in states such as Colorado, Utah, and Wisconsin, many of these self-evacuees battled poverty, isolation, and racial violence, while others were welcomed into new communities where they could rebuild their lives. All became refugees in their own country on a forced migration into the unknown. Now their stories are being told for the first time. There was only one major wave of immigration from Japan to the United States. Starting in 1882, when the Chinese Exclusion Act ended all immigration from China, creating demand for laborers from Japan, and ending with the Immigration Act of 1924, which halted all immigration from Japan and the rest of Asia. As with many immigrant populations, the growing Japanese American community was increasingly seen as a rival ethnic economy and a threat to white American workers. An organized and powerful anti-Japanese movement successfully campaigned for a series of laws prohibiting Japanese immigrants from becoming citizens, owning land, sending their children to school with white children, and more.
What was running throughout this is certainly a kind of racial fear about what were called Asiatics at the time, that in fact
the Japanese soon became seen as indistinguishable from the Chinese that preceded them, at least in the imaginations of some of the white politicians, labor leaders, etc., who believed them to be a significant threat to not only white American labor, but a threat really to the white race more generally.